our meeting. Yeah, we'll do the roll call in a second. All right, everybody, we'll call to order at 5:12. Madam Clerk, can we do the roll call?
Yes. Treasurer Swearingen. Here. Noting for the record that Mayor Pro Tem Murphy is absent. Mayor Tave.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll jump into our public comment section. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
Yes, thank you. We have, let's see. For citizens to be heard, Mary Horton.
No on Measure D, but I want to explain. Decided voter. The issue was brought up at the February 3rd meeting and later covered by the Contra Costa News, where one council member said, "I truly believe we have to do something about our current system because it's not working." However, I want to address the fact that has been understated or overlooked, the mayor's rotation. Not a lot of discussion there. People will say, don't you want to have a directly elected mayor? And I would say, we already do. We elect the mayor and the vice mayor every 2 years, according to vote totals at election time. For example, the mayor's rotation works like this. In the 2020 election, where Devin Murphy was elected with the highest votes, he rotated in the mayor's chair, and Maureen Thomas was the second highest, and she would rotate into the vice mayor chair, and then later, a year later, in the mayor's chair. That's the mayor's rotation. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you speak.
Yeah, okay. Regarding the 2022 election, Cameron Sasai was the highest vote getter. Anthony Tave was the second highest vote getter and added to the rotation. The irony is that the trio of gentlemen in the center of the dais, Murphy, Tave, and Sasai, not only participated in the mayor's rotation that they criticized, but they benefited from the mayor's rotation. So my concern is, at the next council meeting, at succeeding council meetings, I observed that the votes were 3-2, 4-1, or 5-0, almost always with the votes of Murphy, Tave, and Sasai leading the discussion, putting items through. Or as some would imply, is there undue influence in the mayor's rotation? Are there deals being cut? I don't think so. Or in actuality, the mayor's rotation is a time-tested system reinforcing the voice of the people by vote totals every 2 years. So it begs the question, what's not working? Why then is the directly elected mayor question even on the ballot? I would argue that someone simply wants to have the title of mayor of Pinole for 2 or 4 consecutive years, and that's not good enough for me. So I am voting no on Measure D. No power grabs, no kings in Pinole. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Next speaker, please.
That concludes public comment.
Okay. All right, so we're going down to consent items. Doesn't look like we have any business items. City Manager Evans.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the subcommittee. So we've had a couple meetings now on the budget, and I think we're going to try a different tact here in some ways. You may recall the Yellow Brick Road, where we had about a $4 million challenge, and about $1 million of it we were estimating to be resolved through discussions with Confire. About a $1 million solution in 3% cuts, And then $2 million potentially using the 115 trust as a soft landing as we looked at future cuts. What we heard from the mayor and the council is, let's look at a little bit more of an aggressive look at how to come up with some of these cuts and maybe reduce the amount of 115 used to offset this. What can we do? So as we've built this model that we're going to work through in a few moments, we're going to sort of reset, and I'm going to look at the finance director. Our number now, I know I use 4 million as a general number, but is it 4.2, 4.3? What's the?
So it's $4.2 million.
Okay, so we have 4.2. I'm a visual hand person, sorry. 4.2. The Confire number, a little bit more closely, when you look at the tax rate areas that we're talking about, is 1.1. So let's just pencil that in as you know, hopefully a number that comes out. We're at 3.1. That is the number we have to solve. There's about $700,000 that of special funds that receive city subsidies above and beyond what money they generate. And that is something that I think could lead to more discussions of reducing that number. That leaves you a balance of about 2.4. That 2.4, you know, we've got the 3% cuts, and what we want to do here is we're going to walk through the non-staff cuts, 3, 6, 10s of all the departments, and hear some of your input. We really want to hear, that sounds good, or that's a little bit too much. So that way, maybe we can build that number a little bit higher. We don't want to get into the real, you know, position freeze or anything like that in this level, because I think we'd really like to understand what's that number for non-staff that we can cut, trim, delay, and make sure that we can present that to the council on June 2nd and ultimately June 16th. Hopefully we're around 1.2 million, but we'll work with you all through this in this work in progress. Again, our goal is to try and how do we work on not utilizing the 115 trust as much as possible and give a balanced budget to the city council and the community. So that's our goal and what we'd like to do. Markeisha has each department, and you've got the 3, 6, 10s in front of you. And we were going to flip down through each one and really quickly just hit on, well, you know, I've just got different sheets in front of me, but this department, here are the numbers. You know, sort of, are there any heartburn or not? We're just going to put it over in a tab, and we're going to just start adding it up quickly, though. You know, trying to get through this, unless you'd like to roll your sleeves up in a different way, but we just really wanted to make this interactive and look for your direction and comments.
Okay,
Okay.
start it off.
All right. And on a side note, with a different subcommittee, we'll probably be doing this with the CIP as well to try and really focus on that, but that's not for this group. Okay, where are we?
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, I can see it here.
There. Okay, so we start off with the city council. Side note, the council did, this is the 3, 6, 10 number, and there should also be in front of you a 1 through 29 handout that you can follow as well. Yes, sir.
We have this one.
Yes.
Is there another one?
No, should be pages, 29 total pages at the bottom.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
When we first put this together, the 3, 6, 10 for the city council was $28,000, would have been the 10%. The city council, in an action in a couple meetings ago, voted to pull back on all, it was travel, or was it travel and training, and that was $64,000.
So this page isn't up to date.
Correct. We wanted to keep the 3, 6, 10s that you've seen, but we were going to, since that's really the only unique twist.
Yeah.
What we'd like to do on the tab that we're going to keep going along the side here is 64,130 would be the current number that would be reducing the city council budget because of the action that happened that night. So we're just trying to keep apples and oranges and kumquats.
And then
64,130.
what about the membership?
That wasn't voted on. It is a $68,000 number that we could certainly go back to. But we were wondering, let's take that number because it's already double what we got in our original assessment and come back, unless you want to go into the,
Yeah, I mean,
All right,
let's,
okay.
let's cut that. I mean,
Yeah.
that it seemed to be the topic of discussion is probably going to be coming up. So that's another 68, right?
yes,
Okay. That's
68. Yes,
132.
yes.
city council memberships. I can find that for you.
It's 28.
Okay.
All right. Then, oops, all right, so that's special departmental is 68,190.
That's PCT.
Ah, that's PCTV. The dues and memberships are 23,040.
23. Boo. Okay. 23.
So
That's
those are
good.
citywide memberships that live in the city council budget. Okay.
Okay. So that's on the table.
Yes.
And then this 28K is not real at the bottom for 10, right?
Correct. We're basically going to say it's been replaced with the 64 and the 23.
Okay. So city clerk.
So, yeah, you go to the next page would be the city clerk. And there was a reduction in services of 21.3 at, I think, all three levels here. And what, I think the challenge, when you look, I thought there was a staffing part of this. Is there not a staffing?
Staffing is affected at 6%.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
So 33. All right. Where's the staffing here?
To get to anything, this is the goal. This is what we get to without
Okay.
staffing. It's 5,000.
Okay. So what you see on the city clerk page, the 25,000, which is the 3%, the 45,000, which is 6, and the 10% has the same 45,000 because the only way to get beyond that number would have been staff. And so since we're trying to keep it without going into staff in this discussion, the largest impact that could be handled within that department is 45. And it covers the, reduction in professional services, special department expenses, training, and memberships.
City treasurer. Any comments?
Only that,
Your mic, Treasurer Swearingen.
no, I'm sorry, that was across the board. Memberships was across the board. It wasn't just this department, it was all departments.
The initial statement was city council discussion.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
mean, my question would have been reductions on all departments for things like travel and stuff like that.
And that's
see what
exactly
that
what staff did right after that meeting, is looked at all of the impacts.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Is that represented here?
Most of it you'll see in here because that is sort of the easiest, I'll use air quotes, to cut,
And
those.
then you have, I didn't look at page 29, so do you have a bottom line number when you get done?
That's what we're adding up right here on the side to make sure that we've got a
Okay.
good idea.
So
Fine.
so 30K.
Actually, it'd be, if it was the full 10%, it would be 45. So and that's where, trying to understand, do you want to just stick to the 3, or do you want to go a little more aggressive looking at 6 and 10? And so those 6 and 10s would include a little bit more of
Well, I'm trying to figure out like what the number we're trying to get to is an aggressive number, right? I mean, it's not so 3%. I'm sure you guys have ran the numbers, and where does that put us?
It's about $1 million.
Still $1 million in the hole.
Yeah.
Where's 6% put us?
6% saves about $2 million.
So
$2 million. But where does that put us in our net?
that's about the number that we
That's the,
are
yeah.
trying to hit, frankly.
Okay.
2
So,
million
So if we focus on 6, we
This
can
year.
shortcut this pretty quickly.
well, I mean, I think we're going to be putting forward a budget, right? Now, obviously, this isn't going to feel good. This is not easy, and this is going to be very hard, especially for the next 6 months. I mean, but my thought is that if we get to a balanced budget, we'll start that 0% analysis and have the runway to get to mid-year, right? So come mid-year, we need to do our 0% analysis, right? Meaning that what are our critical services and build everything up to a point where we know exactly what we need to operate to provide the services for the city. Right now, we're overextended. Is that a fair statement, or
Yes, yeah, and have been for, unfortunately, for several years.
for a few years? Okay, so I think it's going to take some discipline to get to mid-year and really understand where we are. Is that a fair
Yeah.
statement, or?
Yes, sir. And the great statement with that also is, starting July 1, you can tinker with the budget any day, every day you need to. It's a living document. So there can be slight tweaks or course corrections if, an assumption on certain savings just doesn't materialize. Staff can come back to working through the subcommittee saying, you know what, we need to either add, or guess what, we're actually over hitting our number. So let's talk with the council about easing some of that back or bringing some of those costs back.
And I think most, I mean, I can't speak for all the council, but I think most of the council understands that there's going to be some give and take here to try to balance this in. But 6% is what we're looking at to realistically get this thing balanced out.
Correct. Now, there will be some elements that will impact staffing levels. And so I think that's the real challenge here, is how to balance. At 3%, I think most of the departments, while not overly enthusiastic about the staffing impacts.
Nobody is.
Yeah, but they could balance it.
Right.
Because there were vacancies. When you start going above that, you may start impacting other elements, and that's where we're trying to find a creative way not to do that.
So let's look at this a different way. If we were to say, no impacts to staffing,
Except for maybe freezing.
except for freezing,
Yeah.
where does that put us? Does that put us in the 6% range?
I think for the most
4.5.
part, yeah,
like-
it'll get us pretty darn close.
Okay.
Especially with the discussion on potential subsidies to other special funds.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's
Stormwater, for example. There's a requirement for, or there's a hope for Measure S of ongoing funds of $250,000 to $350,000 a year. Well, Stormwater receives $200,000 a year in funding. We turn around and work with the Public Works Department and say, that's what you have to live within the next year or two. Live within your budget there. We'll have to look at maybe some, whoever's tapping into it, there may be a certain half person here. We'll look at transferring them around, and making the allocation work. But those kind of approaches with certain departments saying, you have revenue coming in. You're gonna have to live within your budget or pretty darn close. So that way, for the next few years, we can make all of this work better, and we're not looking at, staff impacts beyond that.
So what is that, if we were to say 6% right now, what does that do to the Yellow Brick Road?
I don't know if you have the yellow.
Does
brick
that go
or-
away?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Take a moment. Okay, every time I start to ask. It's there, okay.
They're awesome back there.
I think there's a little delay as well.
Yeah.
For the broadcast.
So you can see the Yellow Brick Road, which originally, again, was relying on $2 million of 115 and a 3% cut. It had I'm just looking across, we had the 1 million for Confire, the 3% cut, and then the 2 million for 115. The 6% would change that 1 million to 2 million, reducing the need for the 115 by 1 million, and then the special funds, reducing that subsidy also makes up another 700,000.
Oh, I see. So if we were to say the 4.5% or 3%, that was what we saw up
Yep.
there as far as the model? Oh, we can see
Yeah, correct. Up, what was there was 3.
3.
Yes, and a 6% would make that Yellow Brick Road a much more attainable road quicker.
Well, according to what we're talking about, 6% would just knock the 2 million down, right?
Correct.
So we're really looking at $100,000 not dipping into the 115 trust and a structurally balanced budget moving forward.
Correct, and
I
a
mean,
lot of
when I say
discipline,
structural,
yeah, a lot of
not-
discipline keeping those numbers in play. Yes, and that's what generally what I've done over my career is if you can be with plus or minus 1% of the revenues, so, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Get pretty darn close, and then you can tweak it mid-year, if it's only a couple $100,000.
So just short math, we're really looking at like 4%.
Yes, and we'll probably, I think if we hear from you all 6%, we'll go back with some of the departments. They may not be able to achieve that without some staffing impacts that aren't preferable. And then that's how we can come back with a much better number then of if we have to go anywhere else.
Okay. So, for me, it's looking like if we went 6, but really we're in between 4 and 6 right now
Correct.
for some departments, or 3 and 6 for some departments.
Mhm.
And then trying to figure out, because, when we talked about this, we talked about having a couple other columns to try to get the quality assurance, quality control, right? Like, if we cut 2% for one, but the impact is 30% of the service, that's different, right? Or if we cut one department that is a revenue generating, they could see a 10% and still revenue is still balanced. And I know that that's really the details that you're talking about when we're saying go back to the departments to try to make sure that we're not impacting staff.
Correct. And I'll pick, say, public safety.
But we know
You know,
that department's already impacted by
Yes,
staff.
they're already impacted, and if you keep a position frozen, which you really don't because the overtime for everyone else having to cover, you're not gaining anything. You want to make sure you're recruiting and keeping those positions filled. So there's that's why I'm trying to be saying that we're going to work on the staffing models because freezes don't necessarily work in certain departments. Wastewater, police, they don't work.
Right. So any of the critical,
Yes,
it's going to be a problem no matter which way we.
correct.
Yes. Cuts in those departments are not included in this report, is that correct?
They were modeled, but it's not something that we would be recommending because we'd rather come up with creative solutions to
So
get
the
there.
solutions you've come up with between 4 and 6% excludes public works and public safety,
Well,
pretty much.
it gives us more flexibility to manage that and work with the department.
Okay. That's good.
No.
Yeah, no, I think that just this exercise and the previous exercise has gotten us to a tighter window of what we're working with and what we need to get done. I think, anywhere from 4 to 6, no impact to the staffing levels, or at least that would be the last
Yeah.
thing to,
Correct. There may be a few freezes in I'll say public safety or emergency staff, that has 24/7 operations.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, that's a lot more efficient than us going page by page.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
well, we just looked at just doing the numbers.
Just eliminated what I was gonna look for.
Just doing a high-level math, and I think without having the golden brick road, then that would have been a lot more difficult to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think we did the work early to understand what the 4-year or 5-year impact's gonna look like. So we know what we have to solve for. We know the maximum, we know our minimum would be at 3%,
Mm-hmm.
right? That equates. 6% sounds like we would balance everything out, like today.
It would mean a huge, it would get you pretty darn close if it's not right there.
So here's another question. If we did the 6% and it wound up being 2.2, there's an extra 200,000. What does that next year look like? Because you're
Yeah.
assuming that we have another million next
Does that
year.
roll over?
Yes, then that reduces the yellow bricks going forward. If you hold those cuts or however your adjustments, then yes, you're reducing your yellow bricks going forward.
Right, but you carried the other two over. So there's 3 million in column 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then 3,000,005, can't see that far. And then 3,750,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we eliminate the 2 million at 6%, so that's only $1 million for that year that we're short, or that we would have to go in according to that model.
Yes. Correct.
But that's not linear. We know that it's probably less than $1 million, right?
Yes, because you're also going to have an increase in your revenues that you're not necessarily accounting for. Well, you are a little bit. We do have it in the revenue side.
Still $1 million, there's another $1 million. It's a problem next year.
Yeah, and in some ways, what this 6% is accelerating that, solving that problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess, that's $1 million, which is a projection, sorry. That's a projection.
The other discussion topic we had last time we were here, this is showing a 1% increase for salaries, or is it?
No, this is showing a 3.
This is showing a 3.
Yeah.
So that number drops also by, remember we were assuming a certain COLA raise. If you drop that down to 0, as I believe the treasurer pointed out, some years it goes negative, you need to balance certain things. But if it was 0, that accelerates that solution as well, just for a year or two until you get firm ground and have revenues coming in that are positive. Yeah, it's, the finance director said $500,000 impact.
Okay. Yeah, I would say if we could minimize, if not eliminate any impact to staffing, that's going to need to be a balance across the departments, and look at a 4 to 6%
Okay.
per department.
So with this scenario, you can eliminate the 115 draw in 3 years, is that correct?
Under that scenario, yes, we're trying to do that if we can next year.
Or this year.
That's what I mean, the upcoming year.
So this bottom line is not the,
That was what we showed you last time. We
Yeah.
try not to switch and then go, oh, wait, we move these
Okay.
numbers and.
all right,
Yeah.
because we don't know if it's going to happen yet.
Well, I think with the 4 to 6%, if it's a 0 COLA, you have some other special funds that reduce their subsidies, you've piled together a significant stabilization in that.
The 0 COLA.
Well, that's what it starts, but again, and the, labor groups certainly deserve everything they get, and they will, and they should. They'd be looking for their members, and that's where that goes.
Okay.
Because your cost of benefits is going to increase, so. It's a given.
So, well, that's, trying to think, Markeisha, anything else we need, any other kind of questions, directions as we pull this together? Because the goal then is to update the yellow brick road, which we can share. So that way we can show you what sort of the new yellow brick road is. And that'll also be presented on June 2nd to the full council for their consideration as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have
Trying to think
public
of how
comment? We do have public comment.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, Amy Sorensen, followed by Brian Rose.
Is this thing on? Good evening. Tonight I ask you to truly picture what a 6 or 10% cut to our police department actually means. Not on paper, not in spreadsheets, but in real life for the people sitting in this room and the families in the city. Right now, as it stands, we only have 2 officers and 1 sergeant covering the entire city that is already operating at the edge. Now imagine one of those officers arrests someone and has to transport them to jail. That process can take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. During that entire time, that officer is unavailable. Now we're down to 1 officer and 1 sergeant for the whole city. The sergeant is often balancing administrative responsibilities, supervising incidences, handling reports, coordinating resources, and managing multiple calls at once. That leaves essentially 1 patrol officer actively responding to emergencies. It's important to understand that we're already operating with limited support staff. Currently, we have a community service officer 4 days a week. That CSO handles prisoner transports and assists with traffic collisions, helping keep officers available for emergency calls. Without that position, officers are pulled away from patrol duties even more frequently to handle non-criminal calls and transports themselves. Now picture this, it's 5 p.m., traffic is backed up, that 1 available officer is on Fitzgerald Drive, one of the highest call volume and theft-prone areas. At that same moment, a call comes out in the valley, a subject not breathing. That's someone's husband, someone's child, someone's mother, someone begging dispatch to send help faster. But the reality is that officer may be 8 to 9 minutes away before they can even arrive. 8 to 9 minutes can be the difference between life and death. And while that 1 officer is racing across town, there's no backup nearby. Now imagine another scenario. An armed robbery occurs on Fitzgerald Drive. A suspect is threatening patrons with a weapon, but the only available officer is tied up on San Pablo Avenue handling a traffic collision, a call that in many cases could have been handled by a CSO. Except with these cuts, we may not have that support available either. So now that collision occupies the only patrol officer we have available. That means victims in an armed robbery wait longer, witnesses wait longer, businesses wait longer, and all while the danger to the public increases and to our officers, increasing dramatically. And this conversation cannot stop just at patrol staffing alone. Dispatchers are the first responders. Without a fully staffed dispatch team, the difference of just seconds in answering a 911 call matters. Dispatchers are simultaneously managing incoming emergency calls, gathering critical information, monitoring officer safety, and controlling an active radio channel. In a rapidly evolving situation involving an armed subject, missed or delayed information can be catastrophic. A dispatcher trying to manage multiple emergencies alone increases the risk of delayed communication, incomplete information, and slower coordination between officers and emergency. And the reality is we're already struggling with staffing. And when staffing gets this thin, we're no longer talking about inconvenience. We're talking about delayed emergency response, reduced public safety, increased risk to our residents, and officers and dispatchers being forced to make impossible choices about which emergency gets help first. No family should have to wonder why help took so long. No officer should have to respond alone to a violent situation because there simply was no bodies available. Budget cuts at this level are not abstract numbers. They are longer wait times. They are fewer officers preventing crime before it happens, and there are fewer dispatchers coordinating life-saving responses. I only have 2 more sentences. There are fewer resources during someone's worst moment. I urge you to think very carefully about the real-world consequences of these cuts, because once staffing and services are lost, the impact will be felt immediately by every resident in this city.
Thank you, Speaker. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Brian Rose. I'm a sergeant over at the police department, and I'm here clearly representing the PPEA tonight. Thank you, Officer Sorensen, for your comments. She obviously went into a lot of detail regarding how the police department would be impacted by these cuts. I just want to shed a little bit more light on that. I understand that the city is in a very difficult position, and I do appreciate the thoughtfulness that was put into the budget and the wherewithal concerning how cuts would impact not only the police department and our officers, but the service that we provide to the community. One thing that I do want to emphasize is that the cuts on paper will inevitably become consequences in real life. Those consequences may not show up on a spreadsheet immediately, but things that I just want us to be mindful of. With just a 3% cut from the police department, you're talking about 2 officers, 2 CSOs. Amy enumerated the duties that the CSOs do for us. They play an integral role in the police department, and 1 records position. It would also cut out our wellness budget. I've been doing this job for almost 20 years at this point, and unfortunately, I've lost friends and family members that serve as first responders, and so wellness is very near and dear to my heart. That said, the data is clear. This is something that we don't talk about very frequently, but what the data tells us is that it's not armed suspects or car accidents that are the most dangerous things to police officers. It's us ourselves. On average, a police officer takes his or her own life every other day in this country. So you're talking about an average of 150 to 180 officers every year that die as a result of suicide, and just a 3% cut is going to eliminate our wellness budget. And I'm in the process of building out a wellness team at the police department. Needless to say, 6% and 10% would be absolutely devastating to us. One thing I want us to also place emphasis on is that tired cops and tired dispatchers are dangerous cops and dangerous dispatchers. Why? Well, because as Amy stated, we have to make split-second decisions in very rapidly evolving situations on a daily basis. And those decisions can mean the difference between life and death for us and for the people that we're trying to protect, also for suspects. An example just from today, I'm ad-libbing right now because I didn't have time to prepare because of the amount of overtime I've been working, but unfortunately we went to a dead body today, and that tied up our entire resources for several hours. So just something to be mindful of. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Next speaker, please.
Yes, we have Rafael Menez online. Go ahead, Mr. Menez.
Good afternoon, Subcommittee. I just have a few questions. So first, if the city's making cuts to dispatch expenditures, wouldn't it basically just get, I think, 33% revenue benefit because the other cities of a Tri-City dispatch are paying towards it? So if there's a reduction to dispatch, presumably their contributions would also decrease proportionately. Secondly, given the size of police department expenditures and fire department expenditures in the city's budget, if we don't make any cuts there, we would have to make substantially larger cuts elsewhere, just because looking at numbers by percentage doesn't necessarily show you raw amounts. If 3% in one department is $1 million and $1 million in another department is 10 or 20%, then I guess the question is, if we're saying public safety is a high enough priority for us that we don't want to make any cuts at all there, how many of our other priorities are we willing to see substantial cuts to? Because the overall, let's say, recreation subsidy for a given year is what, 1.6 million? And a 3% reduction in that would be, let's say around 80,000. Just off the top of my head, I don't have a calculator handy at the moment. But if you're saying, well, that full $1 million needs to be covered by the recreation subsidy because we don't want to make the cut for public works, that's not a 3%, that's more like a 66% cut. And that would naturally have substantial impacts on the programs that are subsidized by the recreation subsidy. Not to pick on recreation, you could also go to other departments other than Public Works and Public Safety and see the impacts there. It's just the recreation subsidies frequently targeted in these sorts of discussions, so it would be an easy point of comparison. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, speaker. Next speaker, please.
That concludes public comment.
Okay. I'm just looking at, in city, was another speaker? No? Okay, all right. Treasurer, have any comments, questions?
Maybe I missed something, but I didn't see a reduction in personnel for public safety. Didn't I mention that? That we were gonna, with this scenario that we have here?
Yeah, no, I mean, city manager, maybe you can comment on that. I mean,
On that, because that speaker's, I think, is talking about reduction in personnel.
And what some of the speakers talked about was at the 6 and 10, there's a pretty substantial, because to hit, as Mr. Menace even pointed out, to hit their full number of what PD has overall. And that's why we were trying to look at and coming up with all the other cuts available before we looked at any kind of personnel. And, you know, and I mentioned, you know, the wastewater facility, public safety, including dispatch, the 24/7 operations are something that have a tremendous impact. And so that's why that is by far and away the least, you know, item that we wanted to look at all.
Yeah. Because, I'm sorry, but I don't have a problem with increasing the CSOs out there. And I think it should be done. And I think there should be a second person in that vehicle. Officers shouldn't be riding by themselves. I've done that. Mm-hmm. And I realize what can happen late at night. And it's not a good feeling. It's a very scary feeling out there late at night when someone approaches you. So, we've had 2 officers on the street and 1 watch commander for the last 40 years, and we've increased our size considerably with the shopping center and everything else. We still have the same number of people on the street. So, as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't, it's not my vote, I'm not on city council, but I would not necessarily support any cuts in personnel for any of the public safety at this point, because I don't think we have to do it. And I think we're approaching a way to get around that without dropping those numbers. And as far as I'm concerned, they're understaffed already, so.
So looking at the 3%, we're looking at 391,000 reduction in the 2 vacant positions that are currently on the books, right? That would be 2 vacant. And then what do the vacancies look like now? Do we have that? I mean, maybe we don't have that number. Yeah. That's all right. What I'm saying is that vacancies are not good either, right? I mean, so I guess what happens if these positions go 30%, 40% unfilled throughout the year?
You'll have an increase in overtime, because obviously somebody has to cover a slot, you know,
right.
And, you know, if you start today recruiting an officer, you really don't see that officer till almost basically a year from now, because they have to go through the academy, they have to, you know, unless they're
right.
lateral, but, you know, so it's an investment that, you know, even if you put on pause, it has a ripple effect, because you've got to restart everything up again.
That's true.
So I mean, really, the vacant officer position, vacant community, that doesn't change. So maybe we're talking about effective hours of operation that are currently happening, right? Like how many hours are being spent? Because when we look at these positions, that $173,499 for a vacant officer position is getting paid. Mm-hmm. It is going out the door in overtime and pretty much burnout. right? I mean, from a staff member or whoever's taking that overtime. There is a point where you're doing force-ons, right? Because nobody wants to do the OT and the money's not worth it. My point is do we look at that and maybe, Chief, quantify that an hours worked and how many hours we actually need? If somebody gets injured, that 173,000 goes out the door. So there is a number that we need to have for the police department for 24-hour service. Trying to understand when we look at this 13 million that we're spending, right, and then the 1.9 million in revenue, that offsets that. Yeah, that puts us at about 11 million,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes,
about 11
correct, yes.
million dollars. 3% of that turns out to be 391, right? Or actually 330, but we're doing shorthand math, right? 6% is probably around 600, 700K, 800K.
66.
783, I think it's on there.
How much of that reduction is actually a reduction is is the question. And this is what I meant by when we do this analysis, 3% to one group might actually impact 10% or 20%. And that's the balance that we're trying to figure out here. There's also the question as to, this is our largest budget. And there has to be a way of paring down here, because this is the lion's share of what we do in Pinole. So I'm just trying to understand, and I know you guys don't have the answers right now. It's going to take a lot of analysis, but where is that balance here, and what does that mean for the rest of the departments? What does that mean for the service for Pinole? And the question is going to be coming back to council: is everyone comfortable with that reduction in service or that reduction in the shift or whatever it is?
Correct, or yes. What's the impact of keeping a position vacant? Both from overtime or growth, taxing the staff, whatever it may be.
How is other police departments balance? I mean, I would imagine we're not the only ones in the area that are battling this right now.
Mm-hmm.
How are they managing?
They're having the same discussion, really.
Okay.
How to balance officers, the staffing levels versus overtime, and it's a conundrum for most agencies.
Okay. I think I still think the 4 to 6 has to get looked at across the departments. I think that it is weighted, so we're gonna have to figure out what that weighted is. But I mean, obviously, even if we were going into July 1st with that kind of aggressive move of going 3 to 6%, there always has to be that constant analysis moving forward. I don't think it just stops with this analysis in July 1st when our new budgets are issued. I think we still have to continue that. All right, what are our critical services that we're going to be providing and moving forward, and then build that back up.
Correct,
into
and
mid-year.
this subcommittee is a great barometer on a monthly basis to give updates on spend patterns and if things are holding or where expectations are versus burn rate and all of the analysis.
Right. I mean, I just wonder what's next after, the next following year. There's going to have to be another $1 million somewhere. So are we, the question is are we going in the right direction after this analysis?
And I think you and I have had the discussion. This is also where, every 2 to 3 years, how do we add a new revenue source? So it's not just always cuts and hold on.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, I think we have enough direction, or is there anything else pending? That
This was extremely helpful.
Okay. All right. So we'll move to item 5, adjournment. Okay. Thank you, everyone.